Testing.
Okay. Okay, good evening, everyone. It is Monday, June 24th. This is the Select Board meeting. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We'll start by granting Westwood Media Center permission to record this meeting. Is there anyone else here wishing to record the meeting, just so we go through our procedures? Okay. Two updates I'd like to give before we go into our meeting agenda. First, I want to remind everybody, especially people who are watching this at home, that every Tuesday through the summer we have the Farmers Market outside the police station, and it runs from 1 to 6 p.m. And we hope that you come out and support this nice community resource that we have in town. We have some vendors who are returning, and I read a new farm that's being represented, so please come out and buy from the farmers market. The next update item is a community forum which will be held in this room on Wednesday evening. This forum is part of the process that is being undertaken to collect information on the town administrator search. As we have announced in previous meetings, Mike Gillette will be retiring later this year, and the Select Board has engaged a consultant, executive recruitment firm, who will oversee the community forum Wednesday evening. It takes place here June 26th at 7 p.m. and I think it's estimated to run about an hour to an hour and a half. It will be recorded by Westwood Media Center for people who are not able to attend, and we hope that it's an opportunity for people to share the types of skills and characteristics that they would like to see in our next town administrator. And that information will become part of the process as we go forward and conduct the search. Any questions should be directed to Joan Murray, our HR director, and she has her office at Town Hall. You can call the main number and be connected to Joan if you have any questions. So we have a very busy agenda tonight. Hopefully it will move along for anybody who's here for any of the agenda items. We will get to you. We have to give everything its due time, but hopefully, as I said, we'll move this along. The first item on the agenda is a public hearing for Verizon. It is for a conduit installation on Canton Street. Is there anyone here representing Verizon? If you could come on forward. Could you just identify yourself for the record?
Sure. My name is Ross Bilodeau, representing Verizon New England.
Thank you for being here tonight. So what we have in our materials is an indication that Verizon is seeking permission to lay and maintain underground conduits with wires and cables placed within the public way or ways near the area of 348 to 410 Canton Street. This is a public hearing. If anyone is here to speak on this after we go through a discussion and board questions, I'll open it up to the public. I'm just going to read a little bit more, then I'm going to start asking questions, and my board members will as well. So this is a normal process that Verizon needs to go through to come before us. It is to place 6 4-foot concrete, is that right? 4 inch. Thank you. I'm reading it, it looks blurred here. 4-inch encased conduits and 2 manholes northerly from the Neponset River for a distance of approximately 586 feet. The objective is to make connections with poles and buildings for distribution purposes, and this work is necessary to accommodate the Canton Norwood Westwood Federal Aid Project with a bunch of labels after it. Can you tell me what that project is?
Sure, that's the Mass DOT project happening in that area. They're replacing some of those bridges and stuff like that, adding
Right, okay.
Exit ramp, all kinds of stuff going on. I know that the existing pole lines that go over that bridge are going to go away, and all the wires that are on that pole line now, for Verizon anyway, are going to go in this manhole system.
Underground. Okay.
Correct. So this was proposed from Mass DOT and the project designers many moons ago, probably.
Probably. It's interesting, the materials we have, nothing is clear to say that that's what the project
I
is, but I
understand,
thought
sure.
it might be, so I just want to have that on the record. My colleagues, do you have any questions, Mr.
I
Hickey?
just confirm, everything we're talking about is underground.
Correct.
There's no appurtenance at the end of this above ground.
Absolutely not. Just like you stated, to make connections to existing poles outside of this scope of work.
Oh, good.
Okay.
I don't have any questions.
Public, is there anyone from the public who would like to speak to this matter? Okay, Mike, anything else you want to add
No,
for our purposes?
everything's in order, ready for approval.
Okay,
I
I'll
move
take a
that
motion.
the Select Board grant permission to Verizon New England, Inc., permission to lay and maintain underground conduits with the wires and cables to be placed under the surface of the public way near 348-410 Canton Street. Location from the Neponset River, northwesterly for a distance of approximately 586 feet, as indicated in the plans described, in order wherewith recorded, and that the Select Board held and duly posted tonight's public hearing, including notice to abutters.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? None. So you're all set with our approval. And I think we have a document we'll be signing later.
Very good.
Okay?
Thank
Thank you for your time.
Thank you for coming in. Okay, the next agenda item is also a public hearing. This one is for Eversource, a request for a new pole at Washington and School Streets. Are you here for that? Thank you. I'll ask you as well to identify yourselves for the record.
Good evening. My
Good
name is
evening.
Rick Schifoni from Eversource Electric.
Hi, Rich.
Shauna Kyle, Eversource Electric.
Okay, thank you both for being here. So we have a petition from you for a grant of location to install one new pole, pole number 39/2. It will be located on School Street on the northerly side, approximately 168 feet west of Washington Street. And the petition also asks for permission to lay and maintain underground laterals, cables, and wires in the intersecting ways for the purpose of making connections with such poles and buildings. The petitioners agree to reserve space for one crossarm at the suitable point upon each of said pole for telephone, fire, and police signal wires owned by the town and used for municipal purposes. So my first question for you is, we have a layout diagram. What's not clear to me is where this is relative to residential homes and the CVS construction that's underway. The diagram is within that, and it doesn't delineate the house lots.
Yeah, when you're looking at the CVS from Washington Street and School Street on your left, it's about 168 feet up. It's across the street from it's not residential yet. At that portion is business right there on the other side of School Street.
That's where the pole goes?
The pole's gonna go on the CVS side,
Yeah.
the right-hand side of School Street, about 20 feet towards Washington Street. So it's gonna line up.
So it's not in front of the residential home on the
No,
right?
it's not. No. No, it doesn't. There's already overhead from there going back all the way up School Street. And that's where the houses start, behind the CVS. That's all gonna stay the same. This is
Okay.
going towards Washington. Just one
And
pole.
obviously out of the way of the exit from the CVS parking lot?
Correct. That's where the rear parking is gonna be. And in the back left corner is where the transformer is gonna be. So the transformer is gonna be about 15, 20 feet away from the pole. That's where the lateral's gonna go.
And what makes this pole necessary? Could you just reiterate for the record?
This pole is necessary because we need to bring the wires down underground, and the existing pole that's further up up School Street already has 3 risers on it. We can't put a 4th riser, would box the pole in, so we needed another pole to be able to bring the primary down to the CVS transformer.
Okay, John,
No, I'm good.
Mike?
So will all of this be underneath after the pole into CVS?
Correct. Yeah, the wires are gonna go down the pole, under the sidewalk, under the parking lot, about 10 feet in is where the transformer is gonna be in the back corner, in the parking lot. That'll all be underground.
And we have a list of abutters, as we did with the prior public hearing. Any other questions before I ask
No,
the
I'm
public?
good. I'm
Is
good.
anyone from the public here who would like to speak to this? Okay. Again, no. Mike, anything you would like to add?
Everything's in order, I'm ready to go.
Okay, I'll take a motion.
So we'll go back here, sorry.
Yeah, page 12.
Thank you. Page 12. I move that the Select Board grant permission to N-Star Electric Company Doing business as Eversource Energy, permission to install a new pole and to lay and maintain underground laterals, cables, and wires for the purpose to provide service to 299 Washington Street. Location of the new pole will be on School Street, northerly side, approximately 168 feet west of Washington Street, as indicated in the plans described in the order herewith, recorded, and that the Select Board held and duly posted tonight's public hearing, including notice to abutters.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? None. Okay, you are all set.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for
Thank
coming
you.
in. Okay. Mike, we aren't
Yeah.
waiting for Nora on this one?
No.
Okay. Our next agenda item is for the public hearing for Del Frisco's Grille. Can you folks come on forward, please? Chief, you may also want to have the microphone, probably. Thank you for coming this evening. Okay. And can you give your names for the record? Hi.
Hi.
Hi, Alyssa.
Yes, thank you. Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm Eugene Richard, a lawyer for Hurwitz, Richard, and Sensabaugh here for Del Frisco's. With me is Alyssa Pablo, the local manager,
Yes.
and also Nick D'Ambrosia is here as well. He is the regional manager.
Didn't want him to sit with you? He's
I didn't see
You
him.
can
can
feel
have-
free to
pull
pull
up
up a
in that
seat.
seat.
You don't have to be off in the hinterlands there. Thank you all for joining us. Okay, so the reason we have you here tonight is the result of a recent alcohol service compliance check, which resulted in a violation at Del Frisco's Grille. And our job tonight is to hear the information surrounding this and to determine what disciplinary action, if any, we will take. I'll start by just stating a couple of things. I'm going to invite participation by Mike Gillette and our police chief, Jeff Silva, over the course of this. If I state anything incorrectly, I'm sure you'll correct me. We'll go through getting some information out for the purpose of this hearing, and we'll ask questions. We'll look for responses from different people. We'll open it up to the public as it is a public hearing, and hopefully come to an appropriate conclusion at the end of the discussion. So again, thank you for being here. Our understanding is that a compliance check was performed on May 18th, 2019. Over the course of the discussion tonight, we will hear about a prior compliance check where there was found to be an issue of service. That particular check was handled offline, not resulting in a violation by our police chief and town administrator. This being the second time for a compliance issue, we've brought you in. Our job is not to be punitive, but we have to follow through on the rules that exist. I'm going to ask Chief Silva if you would start by reading the police report that was filed as a result of the check on May 18th. And I would just ask you to redact any reference to any personal information that may be in that report on any individuals involved. We don't need to do that, okay? Thank you.
Stoop over here, I don't want to collapse the microphone. Can you hear me okay? So this is in reference to Westwood Police Department Incident Report 19-464-OF. As a result of a compliance check that took place on May 18th, 2019 at 8:33 p.m. The offense listed as liquor service to a person under age 21, which is a violation of Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 138, Section 34. And this narrative was completed by Sergeant Paul Sicard, who was one of the supervisors working that evening with the 3 underage operatives. The narrative reads as follows. On Saturday, May 18, 2019, at about 1900 hours, which is 7 p.m., I was conducting underage alcohol compliance checks As part of the checks, I was using 3 underage operatives, referred to hereinafter as O1, O2, and O3, who are all 19 years old. O1 was born in March of 2000, O2 was born in July of 1999, and O3 was born in May of 1999. Prior to the compliance checks, we met at the station and went over the guidelines for performing the checks. I made copies of their licenses and made sure they were not carrying any other ID while conducting the checks. At Del Frisco's Grille, O2 entered, sat at the bar, and ordered a Sam Adams. The bartender never asked for any ID and served him a Sam Adams draft. He, in reference to the undercover operative, texted me that he had been served, and I entered the bar. O2 identified the bartender who served him. Her name is listed, which I will omit. I asked her if she had asked for ID at all, and she said she had not. I asked her if she was tip certified, and she said she was. I took a photo of the beer. She acknowledged that she did not follow proper protocol. I then stepped outside with the manager. She asked for the circumstances of the violation. I explained to her that O2 is only 19 years old and that the bartender, name omitted, never asked for an ID. She told me that company policy requires termination of the employee. I told her I would be leaving a report of the incident and they would probably be hearing from the town. End of report.
Okay, thank you, Chief. Okay, so that's the background report that frames the discussion of why we're here tonight. And I'm going to ask Mike as well for you to comment on the prior compliance failure that you and the chief followed through on. We were not a part of that discussion, but if you could comment briefly on that.
Right. So just to set the stage, these compliance checks are being done in coordination with 3 other communities that we are partnered with in a grant, and they're Dedham, Needham, and Norwood and Westwood. The grant that we've received is to help protect our young residents, students from getting involved in substance abuse and protection. So part of what has been agreed upon in the 4 towns is that we will conduct these periodic compliance checks to ensure that establishments selling over the counter or establishments serving alcohol do not serve people that are under 21 years of age. These checks have been agreed upon to be conducted every 6 months or so, so a couple times a year is what all the towns are doing. On a previous instance, we had a violation. The last time we checked was in November. There was a violation that occurred, or failure, sorry, the word, a failure that occurred at Del Frisco's. We brought Del Frisco's in, as we did with others, explained that we were seeking to educate the establishments about the seriousness that we take this matter. I went through a history of alcohol service in the community, dating back to when we were a dry town, how we became a wet town, and the promises that were made by the selectmen at the time about being very strict about the enforcement, and that this was just part of that commitment that we made. The whole point was to make the establishments that failed the compliance checks aware of how serious this is. We were very clear that we had been running these. In this instance, when we met with Del Frisco's representatives, we were very clear that we had run compliance checks prior, that we had run this one, that they had failed, and that we would be continuing to run them on a couple times a year to make sure that there was compliance. We did also indicate at that time very clearly that should there be a second violation that would occur, or a second compliance failure that occurred, that matter would no longer be just a off-the-record conversation as we were having, but that it would in fact be brought before the Board of Selectmen for a public hearing and for possible appropriate action by the Board of Selectmen.
Okay.
Anything to add, Jeff?
Okay, all right, thank you. I want to give you a chance to speak. I think that's only fair. So why don't I turn it over to you in light of the comments just made, if there's anything you'd like to say at this point.
Yes, there is, and thank you again.
Yeah.
I have brought some exhibits that I would like to offer to
Okay.
the board.
I don't think we can read them all on the spot here, but,
Well, I'm going to help walk you through it, hopefully.
Okay.
But I agree, and it's not as much as it looks.
Thank you.
I'll happily,
Thank you. I'll give that to you.
counsel, would you like to look at this and we'll share one?
Mr. Miller, yeah. Tish, yeah, thank you.
Oh,
No,
she
I got-
did.
we got
Okay,
to read it.
thank you.
So on top is a list of the exhibits, and my first comment is Exhibit A is the town's Appendix A to the rules and regulations concerning alcohol violation guidelines.
Yep,
So we're not here today to challenge that an underage operative was served a beer.
okay.
All right. I put this on top because there are a number of factors that the board is to look at in terms of a penalty or potential penalty, and whether to go higher or lower than what is provided here.
Right.
So I will concentrate on 7, 8, and 9 of those factors. The first ones are really, did it happen? Is it as bad? And I wouldn't quarrel with what has been said as to the night of the incident and actually the off-the-record prior incident. So 7, 8, and 9 are licensees' policies and procedures. And 8 is licensee's response and/or corrective action. And 9, general reputation. That's what I would like to comment on. So Exhibit B is a copy of a card that was given at the first compliance check that was passed by Del Frisco's. It's from the Westwood Police, and I gather that's their policy, to provide a notice that a compliance check had
Job well
happened and passed. Excuse me?
Job well done.
Job well done. Thank you. Then Exhibit C gets to the policies of Del Frisco's. It's 3 pages. This is responsible alcoholic beverage service. It's provided to every hiree who is going to deal with alcohol, and you can look through. It's comprehensive. It goes to both don't sell to minors and don't sell to intoxicated people. How do you tell? What IDs can you look at? How would you tell if someone is intoxicated, et cetera? So it's what you would expect from an organization like Del Frisco's
Right.
nationwide. Then Exhibit D, Exhibit D is the resume of the server in question that night, and as well as her TIPS training certification. She had been certified just a couple of months before this event by TIPS for alcohol training, and she actually, she's like the last person you would expect to have done this. She had a Bachelor of Science in Criminal Justice. She has a master's degree in criminology and criminal justice. She had worked at 3 or 4 local restaurants as a server and bartender. I think 3 of them in Westwood. eminently qualified, interested in a law enforcement career, and this kind of came as a bolt out of the blue. So Exhibit E, it gets to, starts to get to the licensee's response and/or corrective actions. Okay? So after the first unsuccessful compliance check, the restaurant added a whiteboard, added some reminders all around the restaurant or behind the bar and with the servers as to the safe alcohol sale dates. They started role play and reminders at shift meetings. And the most recently, since the May event, they have retrained the entire bar staff, bartending staff, with tips. They all were tips trained. They've now retrained. They've changed their policy in terms of ID, or are changing to ID everyone.
Yeah.
Before, if it was in the exhibit, that's the policy, it was 30, if they appear to be 30 or younger, they were trained to ID. Now they're going to start IDing everyone. And actually the last exhibit I'll mention now, that's actually, I think, going out nationwide. The president of Del Frisco's Grille was booked and ready to come tonight, and in his letter he says they're changing that everywhere to
Okay.
to just ID everyone. He could not be here because they actually announced today, just circumstance, that
He's a little busy.
they've agreed to be bought by a venture capital or
Okay.
a private company.
Okay.
So yes, he's busy with that. So they're changing the policy. They've played Mothers Against Drunk Driving video to the bartending staff, and I've never had to watch one, but those are pretty convincing, I think. They've maintained all their other practices and policies. Now, I'm working as fast as I can.
It's okay. I'm
You're
listening.
fine.
The general reputation is the final factor that the board, by policy, will be looking at. And we've attached a number of letters which were solicited, but they were from members of the public, some Westwood, some other local areas, who are very familiar by being in the restaurant as customers. So, for example, the first letter from a couple, the Burtons, calls the management, well, actually, I think all the letters say that the management is highly professional, very professional. The operation is professional. And the Burtons note that responsible alcohol service is of utmost importance to us, meaning the Burtons, but they're giving this letter. Next one, Kenny Samedo is a weekly customer. He had 20-plus years in law enforcement. He actually had been severely injured years past by a underage drunk driver. He writes that he and his wife have witnessed the bar staff consistently request ID and also seen service cut off to customers, and had seen the server in question, the young woman I was talking about earlier, request ID in the past. The next one is a regular patron. Her husband and her consistently observe staff asking for patrons' ID. They've been asked for IDs even though they're over 40. I could go on, there's 7
Yep.
of them. But those, I think, are very
Very good
convincing
materials.
that not just reputation, but what actually happens in that restaurant. And if you've been in the restaurant, it's not a youth hangout. I've been in there. One of the letters talks about what an asset it is to the community, and I would submit, anyone can go in and see that. So in summary, I would say that service was made to an underage operative this time, and I believe in that one time in the past. That is certainly unfortunate. It's not what the restaurant wants, trains, or in any way seeks to encourage. But it was not foreseeable for this server or this restaurant. We don't know why it happened or how, but we don't say it didn't. It's just for the reasons I've laid out, the restaurant has done everything that they think they can at that time to prevent it, and they've gone even beyond that now. So it was not consistent with Del Frisco's Grille's policies, practices, training, or their mission, which is really to serve the public and not the younger underage public, unless they're with an adult, and certainly not alcohol. So I would request leniency with the penalty to the discretion of the board. I would submit this is a first violation, I believe, under the policy. And so at most, I'm asking for a warning.
And I do want to state for the record, the corporate policy is termination with one violation, correct?
Termination of the server?
Of the server.
I
with one
should have
violation.
mentioned that the server was terminated
Right,
immediately.
So that's your corporate policy.
That's done.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to ask members of the board if, it went somewhere. These microphones, they have a life of their own. Thank you. I'm going to ask members of the board if you have any questions you'd like to ask at this point.
Do we agree this is a first violation? We do.
Yes.
Even though there had been an off-the-record kind of not that long ago, and that prior discussion should not be factored? Can it be factored?
It can certainly be factored in your discretion, but it's not, as far as your policy, it was not a adjudicated violation.
Okay.
So I'll just repeat that in case it didn't come across. What our special counsel is telling us is that the prior compliance check that resulted in a failure is not considered a violation in terms of first offense, second, third that we have in our policies. We are dealing with a first offense.
Okay.
So just,
But it can be considered in
yeah, but we
Right.
can consider it in our deliberations. John, anything else?
I have some comments, but I'll wait to see if there's any questions.
I'm just wondering, so I listened much more than you think I do, even though I don't always appear to. If it's not a youth hangout, how could this happen? You know, I mean,
You want a theory?
19 years old, right? And so not even carded.
I think it's so unusual for someone that young to come in, but I might throw that to the Alyssa,
We know,
the
we-
manager.
It's hard to know, huh?
Yeah, I mean, we ID everyone. If you came in and said to me, what's your policy ID and are your bartenders following it? I would say absolutely. There is not a question that, we wouldn't have anybody there that would put anybody in danger or a stain. I've been with Del Frisco's for 13 years. This is my baby. And we just wouldn't have had that.
But for some reason, the server that night overlooked standard requirement.
The first, I guess, defense, the gentleman did ID the bartender and didn't do the math correctly and served. He was also terminated even though he ID'd. But
That was the first time,
yes, sir,
not this time.
not this time.
We won't put that one through
Yeah, well, not-
the process tonight, even though, there was some form of compliance failure that resulted in conversation. And for the record, we chose not to have it come here because we felt that leniency on that was better in education than it was coming before us. And also for the record, this is no fun for us either. We don't
will
like
say
doing this. It's not what
also,
we like doing.
While we're here, the message was loud and clear,
Yep.
and I've tried to
And life
go through
happens,
that.
yes.
I think we tried to prevent this,
Yes.
or Del Frisco's.
You have very good pack. Anything?
no.
I want to open it up. Do you want to make
Yeah, I
comments
mean,
now? or-
I would just say, I think part of the reason Alyssa would tell you that a private equity firm bought you is that I'm down there with my family of 5 all the time. And Alyssa is always working so hard. And so you do have a good reputation. And I
Yes, this
see
isn't
people
about
from
that.
throughout Westwood. So I think, I appreciate you raising that and taking this as serious as you do. I'm sure you've traveled some distance. For me, it's not necessarily foreseeable, but we all own the conduct of our servants, right? So that's the situation we find ourselves in. The biggest aggravating factor is not even asking for the ID. I could kind of, on the asking of the ID and doing the math wrong, maybe. So, I don't think it's necessarily a warning. I think it is an aggravating factor as well that there had been this discussion not that long ago. But I typically rely on our subject matter experts in licensing, so I expect there'll be some recommendation
Yes.
at some point. So,
Yeah.
but that's where I am. I mean, I don't think it's at the most severe of the first violation consequences, but I do think it's a little more than a warning.
I'd like to open it up to the public if anybody has any comments before we deliberate. Okay, it's a quiet group here tonight. All right, so what we have in terms of town violation guidelines, under the first offense, just so everybody knows what is guiding us, is the action can be anything from a warning, hours restrictions, and or up to a 4-day suspension. We have an alcohol review committee comprised of many members of the town staff, including the police chief. They have given us a recommendation for a 1-day closure.
Technically 3, yes.
No, okay, I'll go that direction.
Yes.
You're right. A 3-day suspension, but that 2 days be held in abeyance. And by that, it would be, the 2 days would be forgiven if there are no further infractions within the next year, 12 months. Not a calendar year, but 12 months from date of violation to a year from now. That's the recommendation before us, and we have discretion over the timing of that, and it's been further recommended that it be 1 day and it be on a Monday, which is, I've got to imagine, far preferred to a Friday or a Saturday or another busier night, but that you may feel differently. It would just seem to me that a Monday would be one of the off nights, if there is such a thing. I know your restaurant's doing well and it's well received and it's a 7-day-a-week operation. So that's what we have before us as a recommendation. Any discussion of that
No,
recommendation?
I mean, I think it's reasonable. Do you have any reaction, to the day of the week that was picked, or is there? I'd be curious what your reaction to that was.
If there was a best day, that would
That
be
would be
it.
it. I mean, I would tell you, for me and my time on the board, alcohol licensing is a very sensitive area, and I have, in every instance, including tonight, gone with the recommendation of our Alcohol Review Commission. So that's where I am.
And we've been very fortunate, and you are part of our commercial neighbors, part of the community. We have had 2 other occasions in 13 years. So it doesn't happen often, and we're happy for that. Like I said, this isn't something we want to be doing. So that's the good news. It doesn't happen often, and that hopefully is also good news as it relates to you.
Do you want to read the second half of that proposed action, that they're aware of that on the record too? Should there
Yes,
be?
so I was referring to the 2 days in abeyance, and that would go away if in the next year there is no further violation. However, if there is a violation in the next year, the 2 days would automatically be implemented on the next closest Friday and Saturday. So it would certainly make a second violation more punitive, and that would only be the beginning of any action that we would take for a second violation. So it would only hang out there for a year, to the extent that that matters. And it would kick in immediately with a second violation. So I think that's what's before us for the board, is that we take on the lower end of the options available to us. We issue a 3-day suspension and hold 2 days in abeyance. So only 1 day would be served, and it would be served on, I'm going to recommend Monday, July, was it 15th or 13th?
15th.
15th, Monday, July 15th. which would give you time, scheduling-wise, for your personnel, and then we move on from there. So that's what's before you.
Let me just ask, is that alcohol service or
Restaurant would be
close the door? Okay.
Right? Is there a discretion on that, Steve?
You do have the discretion to allow.
Okay,
them to
thank you
serve.
for asking the question. We have that
the
discretion.
To let them open the restaurant with no alcohol service.
Yeah, I thought that was.
Okay,
I thought
thank
that's
you.
what we were talking
That's all I
about.
would.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you for asking that question. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, I mean, the problem is that you're the first violator to come in front of us, and so.
No, not me.
Well, all right, and we have to set a precedent. It just can't be just a warning, because when does it really get serious? So, I think the biggest part of this punishment is that if there is a violation, you're gonna be closed on the next Friday and Saturday. Without a hearing, without anything, it's just gonna be closed, for alcohol. We can still serve food, but
Okay.
that will happen automatically.
I'm okay with that if it's just alcohol.
Yeah,
Counselor, how do we ensure that?
When you
Besides the
make a
fact that they're,
Make a motion and then we
And
write
we'd
a
ask-
decision, we write a decision to, and send them copies of decision.
and have somebody stop by that evening?
Once they receive
Chief?
the decision, they have the right of appeal
Yes,
to the ABCC.
but if they go with that, the chief could have somebody check that evening for compliance. Or that day. You're open at lunch, yes? It'd be that day.
Yes.
Because I believe it's a CV, common victular and alcohol license?
Yes.
Yes.
So the license would stay on the premises,
License can stay on the premise. And then
just no sales?
Correct.
I believe, you know, that the chief.
Oh, you wouldn't-
Just go down and check, make sure there wasn't.
And meet with you. I'd suggest that the chief meet with them in advance of the serving of the day to go through the details on what's expected of you in the way of.
We'll include that
not
with our
serving.
action that we ask you to do that, chief. Anybody, anything else? Okay. I know,
I have it.
I just didn't know if there was going to be a further comment.
So I move that select board
Issue.
render a 3-day alcohol license suspension for Del Frisco with 2 days to be held in abeyance pending any further infractions within a year of the select board's decision.
Okay.
Should there be any infraction?
Hold on, just a second. We
Oh.
have a-
Yes.
There was one question on the date. They may have and
function.
we're not sure. There may be a private event that's scheduled. So they were asking, just on the actual date, could there be some flexibility, and how long would it take, till tomorrow?
I'll confirm by tomorrow morning if there is a.
Could
Okay, I'm going to, before you finish
Yeah,
your
I didn't-
motion, two
yeah,
things.
I didn't put the date in yet.
Right,
anyway.
because you started to say,
Should there be any infraction
no,
within a year?
within a year of the decision, isn't it within a year of the date of the violation? Let's do it the date of the violation. Yeah,
Okay.
okay, so if you'll
I'll amend it.
amend
I'll go back
that
and start all over again.
and consider some way to give them the flexibility to move to the 20th if
Okay.
if the
22nd?
22nd if the 15th is a problem.
Okay. I move that the select board render a 3-day alcohol license suspension for Del Frisco Grille with 2 days to be held in abeyance, paying any further infractions within a year of this infraction and the select board's ruling. Should there be any infraction in the time frame, the aforementioned suspensions will automatically occur immediately on the closest Friday and Saturday to the infraction. In addition, any other, the 1-day alcohol license suspension to take place on a date to be specified by the board, either Monday, July 15th or Monday, July 22nd. The details of how the suspension will be accomplished will be in a detailed and subsequent letter to the manager of record.
And can I just note that, just to make sure that you stopped on a sentence for the motion in addition to, so saying on the next closest Friday and Saturday to the infraction, in addition to any other action the board may subsequently deem appropriate.
Right, well.
Okay, so I just want to
yes,
make sure.
okay.
Amended, yeah.
Okay, as amended?
Yep, so I'll second it as amended.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, none. I don't want to leave on a negative note. Put this behind you. You're important in the community. You're important down at University Station. We know you're better than this. You've made it really clear. This is a very impressive packet. We'll all move on. We're sorry, we need to do something. We're trying to do it at the lower end, and we don't expect to see you back here for something like this in the future. Okay?
In Game 7, everyone gets carded at the Fleet Center. Everyone, 80 or 18, so everyone gets carded.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Not to bring up sore subjects, but, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. Okay, I can send this guy down. All right. We shall move on. The next
Attorney Mullen,
item.
nice to see you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Counselor.
Thank you. Thanks,
The next item on our
Thanks,
agenda
Steve.
pertains to Boston Carriage, Inc. This is a request for a livery license. As most people may know, we have various businesses that provide transportation services. They come through the Select Board for authorization. This is a new request, and it comes from Boston Carriage, Inc., located at 91 Providence Highway. They have submitted a livery company license application, and they propose to have 3 vehicles for hire licensed in the town of Westwood. Hi. And the applicant has submitted all required documentation under the town's Hackney regulations pertaining to public automobiles and limousines. The building department and fire department have both conducted certificates of occupancy inspections of the office space for Boston Carriage, Inc., located at 91 Providence Highway. Sergeant Sicard processed background checks for the owner of the company and inspected the 3 vehicles proposed to be licensed. All vehicles were in excellent condition. Sergeant Sicard's application review recommends approval of this license, and per the Town of Westwood Hackney Vehicle Regulations, a Hackney driver's license application was approved by Chief Silva on the 19th of June, 2019. You're here from Boston Carriage?
Yes, thank
Could
you
you
for
just state
having
your
me.
name for the record?
Katrina Portnoy.
Hi, Katrina. Nora, is there anything else pertinent to this that you would like to share with us?
I think you covered it all.
Well, you
Karen
must have
Flynn
given us
reviewed
all
the
this information.
application, and everything was in order. The vehicles have been inspected, found to be in excellent condition, and it's recommended that you.
And
come
from a
to us.
capacity standpoint, we could use the additional service?
We could.
Okay. Mr. Hickey?
Mr. Walsh, how big are the vehicles? Are we talking SUVs or limousines or?
Vans, SUV, well, we have sedan, SUV, and a van, which is up to 12 passengers.
Okay.
So nothing huge. I don't do parties and weddings.
Okay.
It's not our thing.
Thank you.
And people reserve, call in advance? It's not like you're at the Amtrak station waiting for pickup. It's a
Absolutely not.
different business service.
Everybody reserves, and we need at least 12 hours notice in advance.
Okay.
During the busy season, we request 24 to 48 hours. So yes, everything is done in advance.
And have you been at this location for a while, and you're just seeking this now in Westwood, or is this a new?
Yes, ma'am, we have been
Office.
at that location, and what happened was, at the time of us moving in, we were going through a process where we changed from an LLC to an S corporation, and I believe that was when the bylaws were being changed as well. So when we gave a call to the town, they told us to finish the S corporation transition and then come back. The S corporation transition took a little bit longer. So instead of boggling you guys down, we waited, and then it took us a bit of time to figure out what to do, but we pulled through.
Okay.
Now we're
Very
here.
good. Very good. So Nora, that's
Everything in order.
all right. I think it's pretty straightforward. Any questions from the public on this? Okay. I'll take a motion.
I move that we grant a livery, is that how I say it? Company license to Boston Carriage, Inc., to include 3 licensed company vehicles.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Okay. Go forth. Let people
luck.
know you're here.
Thank you, that was easy.
It was. Sorry you had to wait.
Something tough.
You can have a seat, we
We
can
were
do
nice.
before
We
we
were
get
nice.
up if you'd like.
Only come back to tell us how well you're doing, please. Okay. Nora, please stay. And JP, you want to come up? We have before us again a request from Camellas on High Street for a second discussion of the request to open up at 6 a.m. and begin a service of breakfast within the town. Many will recall, I know you folks do, that at our last meeting, there was concern expressed about adding to an already challenging traffic situation along High Street in the morning. We, the town, had our on-call engineering group study the situation. They came back and concurred that indeed traffic does have some significant challenges. We have data from a prior traffic study. They also said that they would recommend a signage along High Street at the exit entrances. There are two, directing anybody who's there in the morning hours between 6 and 10 a.m. to exit to Hartford Street and not onto High Street in either east or westbound direction. And that's what's before us this evening. So, Nora, anything you'd like to add?
So Karen Flynn has been working with JT to review this, to go over the traffic study, and I believe you've spoken to the owners, and they're
Yep.
amenable to putting signs up restricting the exit from either exit from the property onto High Street during the hours from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. So cars would all have to exit onto Hartford Street, and if they were going
Is this
towards
just for
Boston.
eastbound traffic?
No,
It's just a left-hand turn going out of the two.
Left-hand turn?
Yes.
The right-hand turn's obviously okay still.
Thank you. Mhm.
So
Right,
that-
I read it as there would be two signs that said
Two
no
signs.
left-hand turn.
Out
One-
of two
Two locations.
driveways, so there's the driveway.
But the same
at the
sign
east side
saying
and the
no
driveway
left-hand
at the
turn.
west side,
Right.
yes.
Yep.
So the traffic that
So the
wanted
one
to go
sign.
towards Boston would have to leave, go on Hartford
Hartford
Street, turn right, and wait at that light.
I think that's also a second sign. There's gonna be a no left-hand turn sign. Then there's gonna be a second sign that says, for 109 East, exit via Hartford Street.
And Nora, if we find that this does compound traffic problems, even with the signs, we're not precluded from restricting the hours in a future CV license app.
So the CV license would come back, the alcohol CV license would come back for renewal in December, and you could renew the hours
Okay.
differently
Okay.
at that time if you found it to be a
As long as we're
problem.
not restricted from doing anything going forward, and we're not going to issue the license till those signs are up. Correct?
I think if you feel you're willing to vote for it, if you could grant the license, we will withhold the license until the signs are up.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there's already been discussion with the owners, as has been
Yes.
stated.
Yep.
No issues with that, with them.
Nope, they were fine.
I think also the signs should have a final review before being produced, the design of the signs, by Nora and her her designee. Because we're talking, and when you actually see it, you might say, oh, no, it would be better if.
Yep.
So let's get it right, or as right as we can,
Yep.
right away. Do you have any questions?
No.
Any other thoughts? Okay to proceed?
Yes.
Okay, why don't we go with a motion here?
I move the Select Board grant change of hours, request for Camella's CV license to open at 6 a.m. for breakfast service, contingent upon the receipt of a written permissions from the landlord at 741-745 High Street, and the installation of proper signage to include a left turn restriction between the hours of 6 and 10 a.m., and the installation of signage directing patrons to access Route 109 East via Hart Street.
I would just amend that to include in a final review by Economic Development of the sign,
And two signs.
and two signs.
Well, multiple
three
signs.
altogether,
Three
three
altogether.
Three signs
So,
altogether.
multiple
To-
signs.
To include 3 signs to be reviewed by the Economic Development.
It's on you, Nora. Okay,
Second.
all right. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, none. We thank you for working on this with us. We think it's really important, and it would be in your best interest to remind patrons to adhere to that,
Definitely.
so that you don't come back and we find that, gee, there were great signs and nobody paid attention,
Yeah,
So
no, I
do,
mean, the way the parking
people may not
spots
like
are,
it, but tell them,
parking
please do
lot,
it.
Should be
It's,
pretty natural.
let's hope so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank
Thank you
you.
for coming back in. Thanks, Nora. Good night. All right, we are moving along. Westwood Media Center. Hello, gentlemen. Please come forward. All right. Oh, just one of you. The other two are chicken? Are they too chicken to come
The other 3 want to stay in the back now?
Michelle is here as well.
Did you hear what she called you?
Chicken. No. Hello, Mr. Gotti. Please
Hello.
state your name for the record.
Sure. Rob Gotti, 55 Rock Meadow Road. Here is the Select Board's appointee to the Westwood Media Center Board.
Well, thank you for being here. Last we were talking to you folks, we did an extension of the contract we have between the town and Westwood Media Center. We extended it until June 30th. There's been a lot of work going on, lawyers involved and both sides trying to update that agreement. My understanding is those discussions need a little more time to fully ripen.
They are ongoing. We are close. We just have a couple of things that we need to define a little bit more clearly, and we fully expect that another 30-day extension should get us to something that you would be able to approve
Okay.
at the July 22nd meeting.
Mike, is that your
That's
understanding as well?
Perfectly my understanding.
Okay, because we don't want to keep extending this and extending this.
Nor
It'd
do
be
we.
really, okay, kind of nice to get it done. Procedurally, an extension for another 30 days is, well, this one goes till June 30th, so I would suggest we give ourselves till July 31st. We do have a meeting scheduled on July 22nd, which is now the hard stop deadline. I'm not going to ask for the details of the discussions if you're close. I'm hopeful that you'll come back and we'll be all very happy with the result. So that we can do, and while you're here, does anybody have any questions
No,
on the
I'm-
extension?
I'm fine.
Okay.
No, because even though I read the entire amendment, I'd rather just wait for the final draft to vote on it once and for all.
Yeah, let's
Yes.
not torture ourselves. It's lengthy. While you're here, though, or maybe we should vote to extend the contract, then I have a couple of follow-up questions.
I
Why don't
move-
we do that?
I move that the Select Board vote to grant an extension of the existing contract between the Town of Westwood and the Westwood Media Center for 30 days to end on July 31st, 2019.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so extension, fine. We will be doing something later this evening about some appointments, and we have Melinda Garfield to be appointed ex officio
Yes.
to the
Yeah.
community access, whatever, cable,
Access.
whatever that CTAB stands for. You have a ascertainment hearing coming up soon with,
My understanding is it's
Comcast?
due by sometime in September. I'm not sure of the official date.
Yeah, not either, but we should get, I mean, we really need to get busy on that, and we're relying on
Comcast?
Westwood Media Center to work with us to
Yeah, last
get it
time
done.
we went before
been-
Verizon, or
Yeah.
Verizon came in, we had some really productive meetings where the town, all concerned parties were in alignment. We'd like to get some of those going again, given some of the transition that's going on. And I'm not 100% sure, I know that two of the open positions are CTAB positions. I'm not sure, they're supposed to take the lead on bringing all that together, so I'm not
That's
sure.
Donna's group, right? Do we-
So I think that the two attorneys, as they discuss this, should talk about, what's required of it, what we need to do for an ascertainment hearing, and then advise us, and we'll.
If we need to appoint people, we certainly want to get people who are savvy in that industry.
Right.
That should be part of what we work on
Right.
for the next July meeting or early August. It's not a group that meets often, which I think is why it's kind of
Is there any
languished.
conflict of interest in, and if there was anyone interested from the Westwood Media Center Board also serving on the CTAB Board?
Why don't we ask the attorneys if that's
Yeah,
okay?
we'll talk about it.
Mm.
Under the last representation, they were not keen, the individual wasn't keen on that, but we have a different attorney now, so
So why don't we check?
why don't we check?
Because in part, having people knowledgeable about all this is the challenge of getting people on that board. I mean, I know some people who work in the industry, but to get up to speed would be,
Yeah, and some of the.
A bit
I
challenging.
don't even know if CTAB has enough board members in
To-
place to actually hold a meeting where they have a quorum. So that's, I'm just looking for solutions where we have people who are more familiar with some of the issues.
two things. You need an ascertainment hearing date, and we need to check on the board composition and address it
Right.
to the extent it needs to be. Okay.
Do we know, excuse me for not looking this up on the town website, do we know who the named chair of the CTAB board is?
No, I think it's been so long since they met that that would be an issue.
Okay.
I'm not sure there is one. But Donna McClellan is the right person to speak to on that, right, Mike?
Yeah.
So
Given
could
that
you
we're
follow
only
up with her?
talking about 6 months' worth of probable commitment in terms of what this person would need to do, we might be able to fill a couple of those open spots with people who, provided there's no conflict.
We'll get some advice on that
Great.
offline. Okay?
Yeah,
Anything
no,
else?
Great, thanks.
So let's get this resolved, come back, and let's get a contract signed next time?
Sounds great.
Okay, thank you all for coming
Rob.
in.
Thank you all.
And thank you as well for the great work that Westwood Media Center does for the town. It's very helpful. Have a nice summer.
As doing right now.
Okay. All right, and we think Connor's great.
Here he is.
You're welcome. My microphone must have been working. Yeah, you can stay and enjoy the night. Okay.
After this next one. it'll be
Come on
Mary
up,
left.
ladies. We have, the next item on the agenda is to revisit the request for a teen librarian. Everybody, names for the record, please.
Wendy Thornton, 44 Westview Terrace.
Tricia Perry, Library Director, Westwood Public Library.
And Wendy, you're one of the trustees,
I
right?
am one of the trustees, yes.
The Secretary of the Board.
Oh, well, thank you for joining
Sorry.
us. I've been hearing from your colleagues, so maybe my colleagues are as well. Okay, so little bit of a background. This request has been brought back to us as we asked it to be. Back last year, there was a request for a teen librarian position. At that point, it was a part-time position without benefits. For reasons that didn't work, you asked for benefits and a little more hours. We approved that. For reasons that didn't work, we come back. Your request now is to have this be a full-time position. We had requests for more information. I know I certainly did. You have given us infinite information now. Kill them with volume, as there he
Careful what
goes.
you ask for, that's right.
Information,
You asked a
information.
reference librarian.
What we
What I do.
But within all that information, I found actually the thing that I was really looking for, and that is if the job was a part-time and then it was increased part-time and now it's a full-time, what is that person now being asked to do that they weren't asked to do when it was a non-benefit part-time position? And there is, indeed, a very detailed, comprehensive list of how the hours would break down for somebody in ranges. And so now this person is being going to be paid for 35 hours but asked to work 60.
43, I think. but, yeah,
43.
we'll
I was telling you, I was like,
couple
which
hours.
number do I add in the low ones, the high ones, and that became more than a full-time job. So that has been very helpful. I will just let the public know for the information. If we knew this much on every position we had, it would be impressive, but we're not asking you to do that for everything else. It's unusual for us to add positions in the town government, which is one of the reasons why they were, at least I was asking so many questions, and I think, collectively, we want to make sure when we're doing this, we're doing the right thing. We've received information from people within the library staff, from trustees, from patrons, from children, from teachers, from the school superintendent, who all believe this is the right thing to do, and that's a huge testament. I don't think we've ever questioned whether or not a teen librarian in the current environment and how popular our library is the right thing or not. It's how to do it, and can we justify the full time? I think it's really what it came down to. So I, for one, am satisfied. We have been given infinite information to justify this, and if anybody has questions, they've gone to the trouble of being here. Feel free to ask.
No, I mean, I've talked
Or
to
you
some
can
of you
say I was
offline. I mean,
ridiculous.
it's very much needed. I will say that.
We-
You do a great job, but it's just having the presence of another adult will be helpful.
And I recall well before we were building the library, people saying, we don't need a bigger library. Remember those days? Do you have any questions or comments?
No, I was happy with it the first time, so I'm okay.
Yeah, it was really me. And I don't want you to think you did all that work for nothing. It really is impressive. And I hope you can find this saintly person in the industry. But let's do a motion and move this along.
I move that the Select Board approve the request to increase the teen librarian's position from part-time to full-time, effective July 1st, 2019.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We know it's funded. I really do hope you can find the right person. I know your standards are high. Go celebrate. But find that person.
Okay.
Okay.
I want
We
to thank
appreciate
you
it.
all for your time and your patience as we move this forward. And I do know that it was a big ask, and I do appreciate that you guys support this, and the town, and the children, and the students, and I think,
Yeah.
you know.
Once you have that
thank
person on board, it will be great,
It will
and
be great.
we'll all benefit from it.
And Lizzie and Molly are here tonight, and I want to commend them for their work for the year while we work this through.
Good
So,
job.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for coming tonight. Okay,
So let me,
hold on.
tomorrow, there'll be a request as to where the funding is coming from.
It's already in the budget.
It's
Right?
already in the,
I thought it was funded in the budget.
No, it wasn't. It was
No.
a part-time position that was
right.
in
So
the
there's
fiscal
a
18.
marginal difference in
Okay,
the
thank
salary
you
that
for-
we're talking about. It's not huge, but
16,000 approximately.
above what's in the budget.
19 is in the, no, it's probably a little bit more than that, because 19 hours was the original budgeted. So
Oh, I
it's
thought we.
No, I
some
think she
vacancies.
adjusted the budget to.
up to 24?
Up to
Okay.
24.
So
I think-
16,000 is the
Okay, so
is the delta.
16,000 would be needed, and I would recommend
thought
that
it
the
was
Board of
okay.
Selectmen
Come out of the
use that
selectmen
reserve fund.
reserve fund.
Which is why this is not posted until, or not effective until July 1st, because it's our
It's your.
fiscal 2020
Correct.
fund.
Right.
Because our fiscal 19 fund is pretty depleted.
Right. And I
Not that
think.
you wouldn't have the person on board by July 1st
Yeah,
anyway, I'm pretty sure
anyways,
about that.
And I think that the number is 16 if it were on July 1st. So what I would suggest to the board, the recommendation to the board is that it be, that a calculation be made at the time of the hire as to how much would be needed to get to the end of the fiscal year, and that amount.
And that will come back for approval?
Yes.
We could bring that back for approval.
Why don't we do that?
Yeah,
Because we
could do
really
that.
didn't include it, and instead of doing it once and then coming back and amending it,
Okay.
let's just do that when you have the person on board. We're meeting July 22nd, if you hire that quickly. We have a couple of meetings in August, and then we're back off our summer schedule in September. So, okay? All right, great. Thank you.
so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Human Resource Director, Joan Murray, please come down. Come on down. Very interesting evening we're having here tonight.
Sure is.
Okay, so next up on the agenda, we'll talk again about the town administrator search. You're going to give us an update. I just want you to know, at the beginning of the night, I did mention the community meeting scheduled in this room. I'll say it again,
Thank
it's
you.
this Wednesday, 7 p.m. here at the police station.
Yes.
Open to our community, starting at 7, maybe going an hour to an hour and a half.
Perfect.
That should be people's expectations, and it will be recorded by Westwood Media Center.
Yes.
So,
Wonderful Connor is helping us with that.
I don't know. Hopefully you are, Connor, and you're listening. Okay, so Joan, please give us an update. You have become the point person on this process, and we appreciate that.
So, thank you. For when last we met, you approved the hiring of Community Paradigm as the consultant that's going to help us with this search. So since that time, the following has occurred. At the consultant's request, we forwarded them a lot of information about Westwood so that they could get to know us as a community. And that information will be used to create a community profile to attract the candidates we hope to attract. Just as an example, we sent them the old comprehensive plan, it mentioned that it's being updated, the open space plan, which is again waiting state approval apparently, financial statements, our bond rating, the most recent town meeting book from the May town meeting, personnel bylaw, policies, the town charter, links to the website. So they have a lot of information about us as a community. In addition, the consultant met with each of you, each of the board members individually, to get a sense from your perspective about what each of you is looking for in our next town administrator, the skills and characteristics that you'd like to see. So those meetings yielded several recommendations, some of which I'll touch on later. But one of the high priority recommendations was that the board should appoint a screening committee to assist with the evaluation of potential candidates and so forth for the position. So the role of the committee would be to evaluate the applications that came in that the consultant will provide for us, and to conduct, to figure out who of the group should be interviewed, to conduct a first round of interviews, and then to present to you 3 to 5 finalist candidates for your consideration to interview as the next town administrator. It's a short time commitment, we hope. It's about 3 to maybe 4 meetings of this committee. So with summer fast approaching, Community Paradigm suggested that we try to get on this quickly before people disperse for their various vacations. So I would like to present to you tonight the names of some potential members of the town for this screening committee. And they are, in alphabetical order, Julianne Bride, Mary Ann LeBlanc, Mike O'Hara, Emily Parks, Ellen Rawlings, Phil Shapiro, Barbara Shea. And I am the 8th member of the committee as the HR director ex officio. I would not be a voting member of the committee since I'm a staff person. So it's a committee of 7 voting members. And I present them to you for your thoughts and hopefully for you to approve them.
Okay. Any questions for Joan or comments on that?
No, I think it's a great group. You've done a lot of work. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, I'm very happy, I think, with all of them, so.
It is a great group, and I think it's a manageable time horizon. It's an important commitment. Just for the record, we're hoping that as we conducted a meeting with Mike earlier in the spring, we have a contract for Mike to stay on until September 30th. Possibly we'll be asking you to stay longer, and it's subject to us both agreeing. But we're trying to work within that time frame as is reasonable. The summer is going to present challenges. It'd be nice if these 8 people, including you, have some flexibility in their schedules, hopefully. We'll be able to work around that, but if there's a week or 2 slippage, that shouldn't define whether or not this group stays together. If it becomes, oh, it's going to take an extra month or 6 weeks, then we've got to talk. But I think the summer is the summer, and it does present scheduling challenges, so hopefully this will all work out. So I'm happy to take a motion to nominate the people that Joan has recommended for the to-be-formed screening committee. So let's have a nomination to form the screening committee and populate it.
Okay. I move that we appoint Julianne Bride, Mary Ann LeBlanc, Mike O'Hara, Emily Parks, Ellen Rawlings, Phil Shapiro, Barbara Shea, and Joan as our ex officio member to the screening committee for the replacement of our town administrator, Mike Gillette.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Excellent.
Great. Thank you.
Fabulous group, and great to have that done. The consultant will be in town Wednesday. I'm sure they'll learn more from the community when they're here. And I think, do you want to just go through the steps that will follow that?
Yeah, I've got just a couple little next steps for you.
Please.
So now that we've got these names, I'm going to reach out to them, in about 15 minutes. No, but first thing tomorrow to distribute a calendar to each of them and say, okay, what's your schedule for the next,
Great.
several weeks and months? Our consultants from Community Paradigm are coming on Wednesday, and I'm meeting with them to lay out a tentative schedule. Hopefully having to get a quick turnaround from our committee members so we can put it all together and come up with a schedule. And hopefully, figure out how that works. Also on Wednesday, as you mentioned, we have our community forum Wednesday night. That'll be the opportunity for residents to give their input. You have given your input to the consultants. We want to hear from the residents about what they're looking for. Earlier in the day, the consultant will also be meeting with the executive function group, which is the senior managers that report directly to the town administrator, for their input and that of the other staff members into the process. So when the consultants get all of that information together and all the information about Westwood, they will then be able to put together a profile of Westwood and this incredible opportunity that will be irresistible for everyone who's applying for the job. So That's all I've got for you now. I'll know much more on Wednesday, but, you know,
Yes, and we'll keep
Report
having
back.
you come back at
yeah,
future
I'll
meetings to
plan
give
to
us
come to each
updates and
meeting
the
and
public
just give you,
updates.
keep you updated so the
Yeah.
public can know as well.
Yeah,
And I would
think it's
encourage
important.
those appointees to come on Wednesday, if possible. And I think everything you just read about meeting with the executive function group and the steps taken to date might be important to read at the beginning of the community forum on Wednesday. Because not everybody watches our meetings, as
Right, to
exciting
know
as
what's
they are.
going on.
So it might just be a good
That's good.
introduction.
Great.
And I'll ask that we just keep this as an agenda item at all our meetings going forward until such time as we introduce a new hire so that people are apprised of where we are in the process.
Great. And the one thing that you probably mentioned, I forgot to mention just now, is that the community meeting Wednesday night will be filmed live, broadcast live by Westwood Media, and there will be a link, an email address at the bottom of the screen so people can email their suggestions. If they
Right.
can't be at the meeting to give their suggestions in person, they can always email the address, which has been publicized.
It'd be good if that was put on our website.
I think it is there, as
Great.
a matter of fact.
Okay. Okay.
Good.
All this effort, and I know a robocall went out, another one will go out before Wednesday night, which is great. And not everybody has lines connected to that phone call system, but I hope most people do. And we only use it when we need to, and I think it's important to get the word out because not everybody is looking at social media or whatever, and we really want to have a good, robust turnout to provide input into this process. So we appreciate it. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joan.
All right, moving along. Next item, Reynolds Farm Agreement. Nora, I think we need you to come back. Reynolds Farm, for the public's knowledge, is the senior townhome development on High Street. I don't see an address right in front of me, so do you know the address offhand?
I don't know.
It's on the way, it's on the...
Bubbling Brook.
It's on the way to Bubbling Brook. From street view, you can see it's been under construction and hasn't looked finished for a long time. This has been the source of a lot of discussions, legal steps, and tonight the good news is you're here to tell us that we have reached an agreement with the developer to bring resolution to this development. I will let you just highlight key things and what the resolution contains.
Sure. So it's actually a three-way agreement between the developer, the condo trust, and the town. The town is contributing engineering services. The town's engineer, Beta, usually Phil Paradis or whoever is equally qualified from Beta, will review all of the work as it goes forward. Eddie Musto is the contractor or the developer of record. He will actually subcontract the work, not do it himself, to qualified individuals, and his engineer, John Glossa, will also review the work. So we'll have Phil Paradis from Beta working on behalf of the town, and John Glossa working on behalf of the developer, together reviewing all the work that's completed, and if they both deem that it's in accordance with the plans, they will approve it. The contractors will be paid out of a trust fund, out of an escrow account that will be set up. So the first step is for Ed Musto to put funds into an escrow account. The starting value is $375,000, which exceeds the estimate required to get the work done, the work that remains
Can you mention what
incomplete.
work needs to be done in general?
It's primarily site work, drainage work, and landscaping.
Thank you.
It everything from grading to putting in portions of a underground detention basin to doing substantial landscaping. One of the first steps in the project, when it was approved in 2012, was expected to be the landscape screening behind the abutters on High Street, and that was never completed to the planning board satisfaction. So that needs to be addressed here. Now, unfortunately, because we are now moving into July before this starts, that will probably come in early fall. They will finish the drainage work and the grading work, but I don't think they'll get most of the substantial landscaping work done until
They
towards the
probably
end of fall.
shouldn't get it done.
It's just not a good time to plan. So after the funds are put in an escrow account, along with some settlement documents, this all was precipitated by a lawsuit filed by the condo trust against Musto and his corporation. So the documents that essentially settle that suit will also go into this escrow and be held while the applicant applies to the planning board and the zoning board for modifications of the original plans. The town supports the modifications. They're minor changes here and there to what was originally approved that will make the project a better project and hopefully more cost-effective. The estimate has been developed by Beta on behalf of the town that shows that the work that's left to be done is in the area of $340,000. So the $375,000 put up should be more than sufficient to accomplish the work. If there's funding left in that account and all of the work is complete, that funding goes back to Ed Musto. If the work is not complete within a specified period of time, which I believe is 90 days from the date of the expiration of any appeal period on the Planning Board and Conservation Commission's modification decisions, they'll have 90 days from that point to complete the work. If the work is not complete in that time, the condo trust can access the escrow account and hire contractors of its own choosing to get the work done. And all the while, the town oversees it with its engineer and holds the escrow account. The town is the escrow agent, holds onto the funding and releases it as appropriate. It's a very lengthy agreement. There are other
We don't need-
provisions that
yeah.
we don't need to get into detail with,
Yeah.
but it should work, and we expect to have the work done before the end of the construction season.
If there is any balance left over after the work that you've highlighted is completed, has there been any discussion about it covering the work the town needed to do in the
So
wintertime?
there was some discussion, this went into mediation. It was a very long haul to get to this settlement. That was an initial discussion, and that was not something that was put into the agreement. So the town has other options for recouping its investment in the
Yeah.
work, but it would not come from these funds.
And we agreed to have that done because there was some drainage work that was actually damaging.
Damaging an abutter's property and causing a
Yikes.
nuisance in the street that we were
Yes.
concerned about access.
So that was,
And the fear there was that.
we needed to
it would ice
intervene.
over in the
Yeah,
winter.
ice over.
Yes.
Yeah, and create
So
a
we
safety
did
hazard.
the agreement, we preserve our options
Okay.
to go after those funds to make
But
the town whole,
nonetheless,
but they are
we
not
needed
part
that
of the
work
escrow
done.
account. That's right.
I know this has been a lot of work, and I just want to say, on behalf of this board, we really appreciate everything that people have put in to get this done. It's not done yet, but it actually looks better than it has for the past. Getting a final outcome looks more probable than it has looked for a
We're
long
confident it'll
time.
be done before the end of the year.
And we held permits so that the last 2 units could not be sold.
So originally, the plan was that the last 2 units not be sold. Due to some misunderstanding, 1 unit was allowed to be sold
So
in
we've
the
been
last
holding
unit.
one.
So we're holding its unit, the address is 11 Reynolds Farm, and we have not allowed inspections or a certificate of occupancy to be issued.
Because we
However, with
needed
this
to get
agreement,
this.
once the funding is put in the escrow account and the planning board and conservation commission approve the modified plans and no appeal is filed, or the appeal period passes with no appeals filed, then we release the hold on inspections.
So
and they
there's
can
still many
begin work.
important steps. The planning board has
there's-
to do their work, the Conservation Commission.
Yes.
The reason this is before us tonight, in part, it's an update, but also for us to authorize Mike Gillette to sign on behalf of the town on this agreement as one signature in a lengthy list of people who have to approve this agreement. So any questions or comments before we do that?
No, good.
You're good, okay. Mike, you good?
No, I mean, I read the entire agreement. I was kind of bummed that that we didn't take care of our portion of it as part of the agreement.
But as Nora said, there's still
I know,
opportunities
I
for
know, but
recourse.
We wonder where.
It was a very
where
difficult
Cost-effective.
Yeah.
mediation. We only barely got to this after negotiations being
Trust me,
called
this
off
was,
twice.
So I wasn't clear, though, so we're not releasing the occupancy permit until the money's already in there.
Correct,
right?
till the money's in there and the agreement cannot dissolve.
Right.
So there's a point up until the decisions are made by the 2 boards and the appeal period passes without appeal, anyone can back out of the agreement.
Okay.
So we're waiting until that point when no one can back out anymore, when the funds are ours to hold and to use in accordance with the agreement, then we'll release the inspections. The C of O will come after the work is done.
Okay. I was more concerned as where the money was going to come from, but I don't have to
The
worry
money
about that.
comes up front, and in addition
That's
to
just-
the $375,000, there's also a $100,000 second
Bond.
mortgage that's placed on another property. So that if, we don't think that 375,000 won't be enough to complete the job, but if something were discovered along, for instance, if they're working on a detention basin that we expect piping to go into and find that the piping wasn't ever put in place, then additional funds could be necessary. We don't expect that to happen. It's been fairly thoroughly reviewed, but there is that $100,000 extra if needed.
Okay.
So, motion to authorize, Mike?
Yes, so I move that the Select Board authorize Mike Gillette to sign the Reynolds Farm Development Settlement Agreement in accordance with the Planning Board and Conservation Commission approvals to sign on our behalf.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, none. Nora, thank you
Thank you, Nora.
for your work on that and
Hope it gets
for your
done.
follow-through going forward. The job I know isn't done. Okay, we have just a little bit of activity on the reappointment appointment process. I would like to restate that we have positions available in the Communication and Technology Advisory Board, 2 regular members that we were discussing earlier this evening, 2 regular members on the Commission on Disability, 2 associate members for the Conservation Commission, 1 regular member position is open on the Council of Aging, 3 regular members on the Historical Commission, 2 regular members on PED and Bike Safety Committee. I just want to mention, Tish, and you can follow up with Mike tomorrow, I'd like to know the composition of that committee, because all I see on the schedule, I mean, we don't have the whole committee on our schedule, but are people dropping off? And I think we need to visit what is going on with that committee. Nora, I should be saying it to you, maybe you guys can give us an update for the next meeting, because I'd just like to know where it is. If it becomes a committee comprised of just planning board members, then it should be just part of the planning board. And I don't know if we're at that point, but it's starting to look.
But we are.
Getting
We're
close.
sneaking that way. So it's something that you guys need to think about and come back to us. Back to the vacancies. Recreation Commission has 1 associate member opening. The Sewer Commission, which is an elected board, has 1 member opening. The Westwood Cultural Council, 2 regular members. Westwood Environmental Action Committee has 2 regular members, as 2 of the current members are termed off. So that creates openings there. Youth and Family Services has 1 regular member opening, and the Zoning Board of Appeals has 1 regular member and 1 associate member. We don't have any recommendations before us tonight for that? Or do we?
We have 1.
Okay, so let's get to the appointments, and you can chime in when we get to that point. So what we have to consider tonight, the Communication and Technology Advisory Board, we have Melinda Garfield to appoint as an ex officio member. Historic Commission, we have Mike McCusker to be appointed as a new member to the Historical Commission. I said that. Housing Partnership Fair Housing Committee, Chris Paff as a new member. I'm going to hold off on pedestrian and bike safety, hold off on town facilities. I think that's it. And you want to add something for the zoning board?
Mike McCusker had expressed interest in the Historical Commission.
Okay, I'm taking that back.
Yes.
He has agreed to a position that we need desperately to appoint, and now we can do that.
You got to put
Oh,
your
yeah,
microphone on.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
Harry Eyeball coming from the back corner.
So we'd like to, Mike McCusker has agreed to go on to the Zoning Board of Appeals.
And
as a
not the
full
Historical Commission.
member, to remove his.
Revoke that
yeah,
one
revoke-
and.
That's
Okay,
correct.
just that one so far?
Just that one.
And you would like to be appointed as the regular.
Okay, so that leaves an associate member position open.
And the
Okay.
Sewer Commission's going to be 2 members.
Well, currently, there's one
One,
vacancy.
but we
and
expect.
We're looking into that. We'll
Okay.
Okay, so I amend what I said in terms of the action on Historical Commission, and that adds, that's got 2 openings still. And Mike McCusker for appointment as a regular member to the Zoning Board of Appeals. All right?
So
Ready?
moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. This is like the perennial thing that comes back almost as often as budget discussions,
Yeah.
just a different season. Excuse me. Okay, do we have any of the hard copy of the minutes, Tish, to look at while we're here? No.
I can make them.
That makes it harder to do. I'm wondering if we shouldn't wait to do them, or if you folks wanted to approve, if you had a chance to review.
I looked at them, but I'm fine waiting.
Are you fine approving?
Yeah.
Because I think I am as well.
I'm okay, I read them.
Okay, so let's, excuse me. We have minutes from March 18th as amended. Oh, I had some updates from today, though. Have my colleagues seen those updates?
No.
No?
No.
Okay. Why don't we just do March 18th?
March 18th.
Okay. I move that we approve the minutes of March 18th, 2019.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, none. So if you can get those out to us along with the meeting packets at the same time, so we can review them the weekend before as amended. There were just some sections that didn't have the action in them that Tish was taking care of today. And we'll get those done. Are we still planning to go into executive session, Mike, just to do the minutes?
I would recommend that you don't.
Okay. That's fine with me. Public and press, any questions or comments? Again, a quiet group. Only the library was noisy tonight. What a...
Thank you for your support. Continue support.
Okay. For the record, you're welcome. We're happy.
You know what happened? They
Okay.
let those library people into a room where they could make noise.
I know. They were the rowdy ones. So our next meeting is now scheduled for Monday, July 22nd, 2019, here at the police station at 7:30 p.m. We're going to take a little summer break between now and then. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good night.